Thank you for joining us today to discuss our customers' perspective of issues that we're facing with the supply chain today. I'm Chris Florence, Managing Director of UPS Supply Chain Solutions. We hope you're able to learn different perspectives on how companies have approached this volatile market in changing conditions. And with me today are Jody Thompson, Vice President of Supply Chain and Operations with Amrock Hardware, and Ronnie Leisure, Director of Transportation with Overhead Door. David Van Horn with Styles was going to join us, but we had some technical difficulties today with Zoom, and so he's not going to join us today. But we're looking forward to a great conversation in talking about the real issues that we're encountering with our supply chain. Hey, and with that, I'd like to ask Jody to just introduce herself for a second.
Sure, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name's Jody Thompson, and like Chris said, I'm the VP of Supply Chain and Operations for Amrock. My team's also responsible for customer care and business systems. And Amrock, if you're not familiar, we are a 94-year-old manufacturer of decorative cabinet hardware. And so we were founded in Rockford, Illinois in the early 20th century by two Swedish immigrants, brothers, and we basically invented the category of decorative cabinet hardware. We consider it the jewelry of the home, primarily knobs and pulls, bath accessories, hooks, wall plates, things of that nature. That's what we do. And we're very excited to be here with y'all today. So thank you for letting us come and chat for a bit.
Jody, you represent the fun stuff of the house. That's awesome.
I know, and we've already got a Rockfordian here. There's somebody in the chat who's from Rockford, so that's awesome. Yeah.
All right, good deal. Hey, we'd like Rodney to introduce himself.
Yeah. So I guess overhead doors are not as fun, but yeah, Rodney Leisure. I'm Director of Transportation for the original Overhead Door Company. I'll one-up Jody a little bit that we've been in business. This is our 101st year. Our original founders were some of the people that patented some of the original concepts of an overhead door. So very well known. And in fact, that name overhead door is kind of a generic name in the industry. We are the nation's largest overhead door manufacturing company or garage door manufacturing company. Again, I've been with the company for about 3 years. Most of our outbound is in North America, both the United States and Canada. The majority of our inbound, though, comes from Asia and Europe. So this is a very, very interesting topic for us and definitely applies to our business. So thank you for allowing us to join.
And hey, Rodney, I've got overhead doors, and what I think is really cool is there's a lot of options in garage doors these days, and that's pretty cool. But I got to tell you guys, 115 years, they got you both beat. UPS has been in business, and so always got to pull the trump card, right? So, hey, but seriously, let's get started. Really, first question, Jody, what has been successful for you in helping to navigate today's volatile market? And it has been volatile.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Well, I'll start out by saying that we import 100% of our product. So all of our product is coming from overseas, primarily Asia, about 60% in Thailand, 30% in China, and then the rest from Taiwan and Turkey. And so obviously we've been extremely exposed to the volatility of the inbound container freight capacity disruption. We've also got about 3,500 active SKUs. And so we're planning to us quite a large portfolio with the size of our team. And so what we really needed to focus on was the discipline and the cadence in our planning process. And so we've always had, I would say, a fairly robust S&OP process, but we really had to go back to our textbook planning alignment to make sure that when container capacity is very scarce, as it has been over the past couple of years, not so much lately, but we couldn't be focused on bringing in new shiny objects or items that were not likely to turn quickly. We had to really focus and stratify our SKU selection, determine what are the most important SKUs or our A SKUs, and all agree holistically that this is where we're going to focus on our bread and butter. We're going to invest in safety stock here. We're going to bring this in, and we're going to accept stockouts in some of our lower running SKUs. And we're going to delay some product launches because we know that we want to keep the stuff that's turning moving. And so just having that alignment between our product team, sourcing, demand planning, supply planning, really making sure that we were all marching towards the same set of priorities, creating the appropriate sense of urgency, it really kept our fill rates quite high in our primary channels. I mean, at a time when, you know, a lot of retailers were operating at 60% fill level, we were still maintaining in the high 90s because we just really reduced our focus to those SKUs that we knew were in hot demand. We always like to talk about what we can control and what we can't control. And so we focused on the things that we could control, quite simply. Did it on purpose. Yeah.
Wow. It sounds like a lot of work went into that. And you made the adjustments that were going to support you and your customers best. Nice job. You know, Rodney, when you hear that, how did it help you to navigate through this volatile market? What did you guys see that you did that aligns?
Yeah, and at least we have a little bit of a buffer. That's interesting.
It's recording.
That Jody, the majority of her product or all of it comes from overseas. You know, we've got about 40% of ours is sourced from North America. So again, a little bit of a buffer, but still highly volatile markets. So over the last 2 years, you know, I've been with the company a little over 2 years, and you know, the transportation organization that I inherited didn't have a lot of policies, procedures, or strategy in place. And so we had to scramble in that pandemic to put things in place quickly. And so there's a number of things that we lined up. And I'll say that, you know, full disclosure, UPS is our ocean provider. So a lot of these are things that we work directly with UPS on. But initially, when the pandemic hit, you know, we started daily operational meetings, just talking about what the concerns were every day, because again, there was just so much disruption in the marketplace. You know, we pared that down now to we have meetings, operational meetings just twice a week, and it's based on our business units. But again, there's that connection so that every week we're connected and we're talking about not only what disruptions might be in front of us, but how to prevent those next ones for the product coming in. We also have a weekly strategy call with UPS leadership, and you know, sometimes that includes some of the people that were speaking on the seminar earlier. So, you know, when we've had big disruptions, we've had senior leadership come in, but for the most part, it's those account people, the leadership that run our account, both operations and sales, and we get a chance to talk about strategy and how we want to be aligned going forward. We also now manage at the container level. You know, in the past, you know, you would book your container and just wait and see, and typically there wasn't a disruption, where now we're having to go out and manage our containers and make those choices for each individual container, whether it travels on a fixed cost, does it go on a spot rate or an FAK rate, which port does it go to? I mean, everything is really just a shuffle, and you look at what's in front of you as far as the availability for pricing in those particular ports as far as congestion, and make decisions based on that. So it's been an awful lot of work. You know, we also put rules in place with UPS where now when our supplier books a container, there's a whole metric that they go through, and it's about choosing the lowest rate. So it's supposed to be booked on the lowest rate, whether that's fixed or FAK. And also, again, looking at which suggested port they should go through. So again, there's an awful lot of variability every single day in our international business that we didn't have previously. You know, one of the things too that we've done is we've had to be more informed as an organization. You know, I know in one of the earlier seminars, they talked about the transportation being included in the boardroom or in those senior level discussions. And I would say that happened early for us. You know, when you see container costs going from, you know, $2,500 or $3,000 up to $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, certainly there's a lot of panic in the organization trying to understand why. And so, you know, I was brought into those meetings early on just so that they could understand why. And that education has continued throughout this pandemic. So we send out, you know, weekly updates across the business for each one of our business units. Monthly, we have a reporting schedule that we've created. So each business unit gets a full recap of what that international spend at transit time looks like, and we didn't have that before. But it was really also about, again, educating the organizations so that they understand where these disruptions come from, you know, why. And that way there's at least some understanding why they've continued for 2 years plus now. And again, they're more acceptable to kind of help us fight through it.
You know, Rodney, I have to say, very descriptive and informative. You really can see how your business has evolved due to this challenging market. And I can tell you firsthand, just seeing it as well. When you talk about looking at different ports, different options, is it floating? Is it fixed rate? How do I handle it? I mean, you got to adjust to it. It sounds like you've got a good process. And having a seat at the board meeting, because you've got to ultimately get product to your customers. And it's impacting whether it's there or not, and the cost. So all well said. Jody, when you hear that, how did that affect Amerock? How have you guys changed since adjusting to this market?
Yeah, it's really interesting because on the one hand, I absolutely relate to what Rodney just described and how you're dynamically managing each container. We kind of took a different path because what we really were dialed in on was capacity. And we really wanted to do whatever it was going to take to ensure that we had consistent capacity. So we did something with UPS this year that we'd never done before, which was commit to a 3-year contract volume, which as FAK rates move, it may expose us at some point to being upside down on where the FAK rates might be versus what our contracted rates are. However, it was so important to us to secure those TEUs in our very core origin points that we decided organizationally we'd sign up for 3 years and we'll live with it and we'll budget it appropriately because we just want to know that that space is going to be there every week for us.
It's a big decision, but what it tells you is customer first. That's what I hear, because you want to get it to the customer. So totally hear that. Yeah, yeah. What would you say, Jody, is the biggest challenge that you found?
Well, it's ironic because it actually relates to this 3-year contract as well, because on the one hand, we've secured ample capacity at our origin points. On the other hand, we're bringing products through a dedicated CMA terminal right now where there's rail on site. And that was part of the selling point of us using this contracted rate, was that rail at the destination was going to make it more efficient for us to get the product through. What we're actually seeing in LA is 50, 60-day dwells, despite the fact that we have this opportunity. And so this is something, our supplier management team, who's probably on the phone right now, they've been all over it and everybody's trying to figure out how do we fix that. But we've been out in the marketplace kind of selling this 3-year contract that we have as reassurance to our customers that look what we've invested to make sure the product's there, but we're still not seeing quicker transit times because we're playing the whack-a-mole game of we solved the problem on this end, but we've still got a problem over here. And so that's really, that predictability is still our biggest challenge, frankly.
We feel your pain. I can tell you, just the well-timed, the trains, the rail, and the trucking. It's a challenge.
Exactly.
Rodney, when you hear that, what's the biggest challenges you've experienced?
Yeah, so I will. So I'll agree too with Jody's description about the whack-a-mole, because it's right. There has been over the last 2+ years things that nobody ever could have even predicted would happen in transportation. And so for us, it's a matter of when we do have a particular disruption, is making sure that we document what happened and what the outcome was, and making sure that we can try to either prevent it or be better prepared if or when it does happen again. Because Jody's right. I mean, every day it's something different, or it's something that you thought you resolved and then all of a sudden it comes back again. So it's trying to stay ahead of that and try to plan or have a strategy for when that does happen again. The other thing I would say too is just having additional options. And so, I think I referenced before about, different ports. Before the pandemic, the majority of our freight came through LA Long Beach, and I'd say that's probably similar to most companies, and that had to change. And certainly considering, the potential labor issue on the West Coast right now, we made a strategic decision several months ago to divert all of our product away from LA Long Beach and in fact the West Coast, and use some of those other options. But listen, 3 years ago, we didn't have pricing for the majority of the ports that we use now. And so over the last 2 years, we've got pricing, we've got options, we've got transloading options now. So it's just a matter about trying to stay ahead of the game and be as prepared as you can. And I think that having those multiple options definitely helps with that. That if plan A fails, at least you've got something else to fall back on or somewhere else to go to get your product moved.
You know, I have to say, Rodney, that is good to hear, because I mean, now you're prepared really for anything, and you've got something in place to where you can adjust and you can pivot and you can move. Are there any other areas where you feel like you've done adjustments to help you to mitigate kind of the issues that you run into, or are those the majority that you found?
Well, you give me a lot of credit that we may have a plan B and C, and sometimes it takes plan D to try to get things moved in this marketplace. Yeah, I would say that the reporting has been a big contribution to what we've been able to do and how we've been able to perform and improve. We really didn't have much reporting before I started, and we have worked very hard with UPS to create a whole portfolio of reporting. And though a lot of it's just, again, the standard transit and delivery times and cost reporting, but still it gives us a much better view of what's happening. And we put it together that it's not just, reporting after a particular container is delivered, it's also after it's been picked up. And so we have a view of what that cost should look like and what that transit should look like. And we can send that out to the business so that they have at least a better indication of when they should expect the product. Of course, we'll put an asterisk behind that because things happen, but that has helped our business probably more than anything, just providing that visibility, and that heads off a lot of those questions that we get in transportation of where's it at, when's it going to get here, what can we do?
I think I've worn the asterisk key off of my keyboard this year, but that's well said. Jody, what have you all done to mitigate the risks and challenges?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of things that we have necessarily been able to mitigate aside from, dialing in on what we're going to focus on. But when you mention reporting, I think that that's something that's been very interesting and challenging for us in terms of how we measure our suppliers' performance, because our suppliers' scorecard was always predicated on an arrival date or even a shipment date. It always had some action that was triggering it. And during the pandemic, when we couldn't get containers for weeks at a time out of Thailand specifically, it's not really fair to burden those suppliers with the delays when they've had the product produced and waiting for us to pick up. And so we really had to get deep within the reporting tools that UPS offers, whether it's Flex Global View or Evolve or Symphony, or Order Watch, and try to parse out, when did they request the container? When did they request the booking? Okay, we know that 3, 4, 5 weeks might have passed since then, but that's the date we'll measure them against from this point forward, trying to understand what's the truth in all of this mess, and I think that's what Rodney was saying, is where does the issue actually lie? And so I think that was really important for us to be able to articulate to the organization. It feels like everything's broken, but our suppliers are actually performing very well. They're building the materials we need. They have the capacity. We can communicate that we can build the product for our customers. Now we move on to step 2 of the bottleneck, and here's all the things that we're doing to control that. I think that none of us had a silver bullet or a magic wand that we could wave. We certainly didn't anyway, but we have a saying at AMRAC that you go ugly early, and it's just laying out for people, this is what's happening, and constantly communicating and recommunicating and letting them know that with our partners, our strategic partners, that we're taking every action available to us. But sometimes you can take all the actions and there's still nothing you can do about it, and that's the uncontrollable. And I can't agonize over that. It's out of my control,
Hey, I think I'm going to steal that. Go ugly early, like that. I think that's well said.
Yeah.
But I also like hearing how some of our tools, whether it's supplier management or Order Watch or Symphony, have helped to run your business. I think that's awesome to hear. When you think about what keeps you up at night, what are the things that come to mind? Jody, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the truth, and because this is maybe a weird answer, but there's not a whole lot that keeps me up at night, and I'll tell you why. It's because as it relates to a competitive advantage, I don't believe that there's anybody in our space who has an advantage in their inbound or outbound supply chain versus what we have today. So if I'm at an apples to apples comparison to who I'm competing against, they have the same problems I have. They're trying to get the same containers I am. They're building at the same factories I am. I know what they're doing, and I know they're not doing anything different than we are. So I focus on the things that I can control. And if I can go to sleep with my head on the pillow and know that everything that I have control over of, that I have taken every action that I'm aware of, then, you know, we just can't spend time wondering, are they going to strike? Is the rail going to strike? Is Russia going to invade the Ukraine? Is China going to do something crazy? All those things are going to happen to all of us, you know? I mean, that's just the bottom line. And so I kind of choose where I invest my worry. And it's usually in the things that happen in our four walls. And then the rest is going to be what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's insightful and well said. Rodney, what do you think? What are the things that keep you up at night?
Yeah, in some respect, I would agree with Jody too. I had to build a team when I started here also, and I've got a phenomenal team. And so I would absolutely put ourselves and what we've done in this disruptive market up against any of our competitors. So I don't know that I'm losing sleep, but there are some things that we talk about and that are worrisome. And certainly, you know, the labor issue on the West Coast is one of them. If, you know, God forbid, if that would happen, it would all be almost like resetting everything, everything that we've accomplished so far over the last 3 years. It would really put things into a disruptive mess. So, but again, I'm hopeful that that'll get worked out. You know, I would say another thing too is that something new that is maybe a topic of conversation that comes up more than not is some of the headline readers that we have at the organization. So again, I've talked about how transportation across our organization, we've had to communicate more and educate the entire organization more than ever. But if you look at certain headlines and you're not a transportation person, you know, you see things like comments about LA and Long Beach and that rates are going down and that congestion is down. And so people glance and see that, and then they come knocking on our door and say, what's going on? Why are there still delays? Because I just read that, you know, the congestion is down. And so there's had to be kind of a, if you want to say re-education or just an additional conversation with the organization saying, no, in fact, we're not even going through LA Long Beach because of a lot of risk that's out there that we agree about as an organization. And so, so again, it's just, again, that re-education, that understanding, and really until we get through this disruptive market, I think that a lot of those things, whether you want to say they keep us up at night or they're just, you know, disruptive things throughout our day, those are going to continue until we get back to some kind of normalcy.
I have to agree. I mean, you think about how education, re-education, just conversation about logistics and really what you're seeing in the news every day has come apart to driving forces of a company. It's just been really, I think, a good thing from that perspective. Maybe not a good thing in that these things are prevalent, but a good thing that I think it's taken the importance that it should in this environment. So, which is really what I hear you kind of saying. And so, well said. Hey, if you had to sum up and do a kind of a closing of what you'd like to share with all the viewers watching, Rodney, what would you say to everybody, kind of just in a you know, a kind of a conclusion or words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I would say that as hard as this last 3 years has been, I think I've learned more about, and again, I've been in transportation for 30 years, and I've learned more in those 3 years and dealt with more issues and found solutions than I ever have. So, and I think that anyone in transportation could say that. So, you know, I think that we're better prepared as a group. But then also, you know, I think that as we look at some of those things and prepared, you know, I've mentioned a couple times options. You know, we've now got, and it was out of necessity, but we've now got more options as a company than we've ever had. And, you know, I think of those days pre-pandemic where, again, everybody just kind of went through LA Long Beach and the rates were great and transportation, transit time was okay. And so there really wasn't a lot of craziness going on. But now we're better prepared. And, you know, I think it's fair to relook at that strategy that we had pre-pandemic once things do normalize and say, was that really the best thing to do? You know, did did we just take the easy way out and just go through Long Beach? Or, is there now that we're more familiar and we've got pricing with other ports and we've got relationships there, is there a different way to manage transportation in the future once we get back to that normal state? Not predicting when that'll be. I hope it's soon. But again, I think it's a different way to look at how we did things before and how we'll do them in the future.
Hey, well said. And Rodney, if you can predict it, let me know, because we'll plan a trip to Vegas together.
Exactly.
Jody, what final comments or insights do you have for all the viewers? Love to hear what you have to share.
Sure. I think I would just harken back to something that Rodney said earlier in terms of, the exposure and the awareness of supply chain, with at a board level, at a leadership level, and the seat at the table that we have today that 3 years ago, I can guarantee you 3 years ago, not a single member of my family knew what I did for a living. They didn't understand what supply chain was. They couldn't tell you if they were asked, what does Jody do? Business, they had no clue. Now, everybody knows what we do. Everybody is very familiar. This is the best time to be in the supply chain profession as far as I'm concerned. I agree with Rodney. I'm wired in a strange way, I think, but the past couple of years have been fun in a lot of ways because it's been dynamic, it's been exciting, and frankly, we're all in it together. Everybody's going through the same things. And so it kind of takes some pressure off in a weird way that you can get creative and try to figure out what's a way that we can try to navigate this situation. And you can take some risks because there's very little downside to risk taking at this moment. And I also think that it's an opportunity for people who need to invest in their supply chain. Now is the time, because I think you have the attention of your upper leadership. And I think it's the time to advocate for the technology and the automation and the projects that you need to carry you through the 21st century. And I think that we've got a voice at the table that we've never had before, and we got to capture it while things are still disrupted, frankly.
Hey, that's fantastic. And I have to say, what you were saying about the job, I feel myself. Everybody in my family, my neighbors, everybody knows what we do now. And it's where it should be. And a seat at the table and using it is so important, and taking advantage of it. Well said. I just wanted to thank you, Jody and Rodney, for speaking to everybody today and really kind of sharing your information, your insight, your perspective, your ideas. Thank you for that. And viewers, I hope you enjoyed it. Just some great information. And we thank you all for joining the session. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris and Rodney.
Bye-bye.
Great. Well, thank you all again for joining us here today for our 4th Supply Chain Virtual Connect. We had some fantastic conversations spanning the full spectrum of supply chain issues. We hope you were able to get the majority of your questions answered, but please feel free to follow up with us directly if there's anything else we can do. Additionally, there will be a quick survey as you exit where you can leave us a question or request for contact. We appreciate you taking some time to connect with UPS today. Again, I hope you all have a great day, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future.